any more really than this thin one. So we've got a tungsten that is 2.5 times the density of brass, which gives us a smaller, thinner barrel. If you're good enough, you could get 9 of those in the 2020.
Could you?
You'd have to be very good to get 3 of those in, which Tommy Barrett must have been an exceptionally good player because he used to do it regular. It makes us just realise how good the players of yesterday were compared to the players of today.
And of course from the longer distance.
From a longer distance as well, and probably without as many nicer surroundings and lights and things like that. But to the dart itself, this has just an ordinary black polyester stemming with a self-adhesive flight which fits into the top. The type of flight you purchase, whether it be a pear-shaped flight like that or what we call a standard flight like that, depends on the individual. If the dart, when it goes through the air, tends to turn, it's usually because the flight is too small and you put a bigger one in. If it holds back in the air, you may shorten the stem and put a pear-shaped flight in. The stems come in many variations from long, medium and short. The darts likewise come in long, medium and short again. And they also come in different point lengths. The Americans now have a strong feeling that the longer the point, the farther away the dart stands out of the dartboard, so it misses the barrel of this dart when it goes in. Gives you more room. I personally don't quite believe that theory, because the distance from the face of the board to the glue, which we spoke about earlier, shouldn't be more than that point. The point shouldn't be longer, else you're going to go right in, hit the glue and bounce the dart back out. So I think the point should be just slightly smaller than from the face of the board to the actual glue which holds the bristle in. That way the dart will stay into the bristle. Good thing to remember about a dart like this is new, shiny. The point, it shouldn't be exactly a point. If it is, it'll hit the wire and stick in the wire. If it's chisel edged, we've got a typical example with my own dart. That is a chisel edge, it's almost round. But that'll not hit the wire flush on, stick in it, and then bounce on the floor. It will sometimes, because that's the price we pay for being a little bit too good.
Yes, indeed. A little bit too accurate.
That's right. What happens is with these that it tends to move over the wire as it goes into the board. So there's many things, but basically about darts, what I'm trying to illustrate to you in this is that you can buy from the old Tommy Barrett style dart to the modern day John Lowe dart, which looks like it should only be half the price of that. And then we've got the ones that Jim Pike, famous legend of darts, would throw these, the Schofield, which would have this in again and not that plastic stem as we see here. This is a collection that probably goes back 50, 60 years that I've collected from various people. Some that have sent to me in the post and said, would you like them? Because they've been handed down, some of them, for a couple of generations. We can look at a particular set here, which those sections on there, believe it or not, were threepenny bit shaped. And because the other darts followed through and hit them, it's knocked them off.
I think gradually eroded, yeah.
That, again, is a thing to look for when you buy a set of darts. It's not really practical to buy one with ridges on, because your point, again, can hit that ridge, deflect the dart, and it falls on the floor without even sticking in the board. So I would say, to buy one, what do we do? Do we look for a thin one like the Tony Brown? Do we look for also a thin one, but it's got a thicker barrel? This one would be more sensible to an ordinary beginner with 24-gram dart, which is middle of the range. If we take from, let's say, the 16-gram to the 40-gram, the 24-gram is somewhere that you could start with and work up or down a gram or two either side. Don't expect to buy it and be brilliant with it straight away. You may have got the wrong one. You may want one slightly lighter, slightly heavier. You know, it's very important that you get the right tools. And I know tungsten darts are a lot of money. They can cost up to £25. But once you've got the right set, then you can stick to that set practically for 20, 30 years. Have new points in as they wear down. You have to change the flights and stems because they wear away, they break. But they're very inexpensive. A set of flights, 30p, and a set of stems, 30. So if you have to renew them every 2 weeks, it's 60p. A golf ball can cost you upwards of £1, and you can lose that with one hit. So we're in the right direction at around 24 gram for a beginner. And my own particular dart, you'll notice, is very much shorter in the barrel than that one. Now both these darts are made by Unicorn, a very, very old established firm who sponsor me. They're my sponsor in darts. And I was very fortunate to go along to them and say, can I take a little bit off? Can I add a bit on? And so for 2 years, we lengthened the dart, we shortened it. I kept saying they're wrong again. Eventually I finished up with an house full of darts, which I didn't sell, I kept, and they're still there as a witness to the fact I keep moving up and down. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm very lucky. You can't do that. You can't walk into a shop and say to the shopkeeper, take me a little bit off, put me a little bit on. So you have to use a shop that should have a dartboard on the wall that you can practice on and hopefully get the right weight, or the weight what suits you. You'll notice mine is very, very, at least half an inch shorter than a standard 2 1/8 inch barrel dart. The reason for that is that, I can explain this later when we get round to grip. It's all to do with grip. The reason I have it smaller is that when I hold it, there's only enough of it to hold. Again, I will get back to that. This is a dart being a torpedo-shaped dart that you throw up and it always comes down. Now that might sound silly because any weight that goes up always comes down. That's not the fact. The long, slim dart like this will go up, but it'll bend through the air sometimes and move way off target. This thrown in an arc, the one that I throw, thrown in up, will go in an arc. So anyone, whether it's a lady, whether it's a young child or anybody, can get good results from it. There may not be treble 20s and bullseyes and double sixes and things like that straight away, but it gives them something to work from. It is a good dart for a beginner, and so is this. This is the middle of the range, and if you can throw a slim dart, it's all to your advantage because you'll get more in the treble. That is the basics, what we're all aiming at.
Now, you said, John, just to pick you up on one point, you said you were fortunate enough and obviously in a position to be able to go and virtually design your dart.
That's right.
Now,
yes.
You didn't suddenly decide on a design. Your theory about what you wanted in a dart obviously came after very much trial and error, I would have thought.
Darts is all trial and error, every little bit through it. If you can make it work the first time, you have eliminated the error. It's a trial that's been successful. So you carry on doing that right. But you can't do that. It's like practically every single sport that you play. It's trial and error to start with. Then once you've found a set pattern that you can work to, you try and improve on that pattern, get it better and better. You will reach a standard where you won't get any better. That's possible. So that's the level of the game you're always going to reach. You're never going to get, if it's destined that you've got all the practice time in the world but not the ability, then you'll probably not get to be world champion. But by having the right set of tools, as I call it, it can help to improve your game. And there's many, many sort of exciting things about a set of darts that you can look at. They're not just a piece of metal with a point, with a stem, and with a flight. I will illustrate what I mean to you with the different many stems we've got here on the table, the different many flights.
I was in fact going to say, John, that you mentioned the dart is used by, what, 50 years old?
That's right. That's a Jim Pike.
Now this is a smooth barrel, and yet this is the only example you've brought along with a smooth barrel. How important are is it the grooves or the rings, the design of the barrel? How important is it purely just for grip, or does it affect the balance, or
Yes, it does. You find with a brass dart, this is made of brass. Sometimes they're coated, they're copper with a brass coating, but that's really immaterial. It still looks like brass. You notice that the point is actually soldered in on this dart. It's a square piece of brass, but the point's been inserted and then soldered, put right down to form the lip, which would go off the top of a flight, like so, instead of just being a square and hit it and fall onto the floor. Brass, you will find that if your fingers are wet or slightly tacky, it forms an adhesion anyway. So they're always okay to grip. Brass darts you can easily grip. With tungsten, they tend to go shiny. The alloy itself tends to shine off as you hold it. So have the grooves in if you want to grip. I have them because that grips on my thumb quite well. You just feel yourself and you'll realise what I mean.
Yes.
It's got a very good grip. Now the thing that a lot of players say to me is, well, those grooves are very deep. And they complain because when they come through into the board, they hit the flight and break the flight. But I say to them, well, that's the price you have to pay. That's the little bit, a few pence for a new set of flights. If you want to eliminate the groove and have a smooth dart, you may finish up having to put chalk on your fingers to make it more adhesive, or as I do, everybody